Hello team, welcome to week 7 of your nutritional program with me, Coach Chicken Legs. This week, we look at caffeine and we look at alcohol. So, from last week, you should have been able to balance your fats, understand what is a fat and what category it falls into. We should have a better understanding of how to read food labels. We should have ticked off our checklist and aiming to get everything to a 90% consistency. And we should have our plan B ready to go. So when something goes wrong, we have a break glass in case of emergency plan that have easy access to and can help us towards our nutritional goal. So this week we talk about everyone's favorite, alcohol and caffeine. We're going to start with alcohol because it's the hardest one to understand. So alcohol is made up of ethanol. When we ingest ethanol, it affects our central nervous system that gives us this feeling of being drunk. Usually, one standard drink in the average sized person will be processed by our liver in about an hour amount of time. When ethanol's in our body, we use it as our prime source of creating and burning energy. So if you have carbohydrates and fats sitting within your body that you're either digesting or have storage of, when we're drinking ethanol, we will use an 80% focus on dissolving the ethanol over using the energy sources we already have available to us. If we're ingesting food as well as drinking, so stuff that's high sugars or has carbohydrates in them, we will switch from a 80% focus of just using ethanol to a 100% focus of using ethanol. So what does that mean? It means that as long as there is ethanol in us and for a short time after we've processed it, anything we eat will be stored in our fat storages. Any of the carbohydrates or fats that we already have on us will not be used. So commonly, if I'm eating meals with my drinks, the stuff that I'm eating won't be used as energy, it will be stored as fats. So this is why alcohol has the issue of making us put on weight. As we're trying to process our ethanol, we're not burning fats in the same way. Our body's in shock. It's trying to remove the ethanol. So we can find that sometimes if we drink often or we drink a lot, we may store more fat than someone else who isn't drinking that often. So we're going to coin a phrase here called alcohol tax. So whilst we're processing ethanol, so let's say we have one drink. During that 1 hour that ethanol is in us, we're not processing fats and carbs correctly because our body's focused on destroying the ethanol. Roughly an hour after we process that ethanol, we're also still in shock, where our body's slowly coming back to its normal lines, its normal levels. So any processing of carbs and fats in our body that we're eating or stored won't be as efficient either. So that one drink has now owed me 2 hours where my nutrition and anything I'm eating may not be to its highest or normal standard. During that 2 hours, you might find that you're storing fat instead of burning energy using the normal systems. So it's not common that we only have one standard drink, and it is more common that we usually have drinks with meals. So if we have 3 or 4 standard drinks in an evening, during that amount of time that you've been drinking, your body will be storing anything you're eating as fats and using ethanol as an energy source instead of the energies you've already got in you. So if it takes us 4 or 5 hours to process those 4 or 5 drinks, we have to wait for the last drop of ethanol to be removed and then wait that time again before our body yo-yos back to using normal processes. As you can imagine, alcohol can have quite a large tax on our athletic performance and weight loss goals because during the time that we're drinking, we're not processing things as we normally would. To help you understand how long sometimes this can take, you're going to have a sheet this week that gives you an idea of the drinks that we may ingest, how many standard drinks are in each of those, roughly the amount of time it takes for it to clear out of our system, as well as how long it will take to become fully recovered. So this sheet will give you an insight of the amount of time frames that we're playing with alcohol when it comes to our health and performance. I do not want to deter you from drinking alcohol. For some people, their weekly drink is what gets them through the week. Sometimes having that glass of wine with their wife every other day is something that brings them a lot of joy. What I do want you to understand is the costs of alcohol and what it's doing to your body. Something that I've seen quite commonly is people try to make up for the fact that they're drinking by starving themselves or restricting themselves the following day. This is not something I want you to get comfortable with. I really want you to think about your nutritional goals as a weekly or monthly goals. It is okay if Friday night meal has some alcohol with it, provided that the other days preceding it and following it are full of healthy and nutritious foods that fit within the brackets of the goal you're trying to hit. We don't want to drink every single day and every single night. We want to use our understanding of how it functions to reward us when appropriate and absolutely not to avoid it. We still need to live our lives, team. We still need to enjoy ourselves. You just have to factor in when is it the appropriate time to be drinking alcohol. If you have an event coming up soon, within the next couple of weeks, we know that alcohol dehydrates us. And as you remember from previous weeks, dehydration affects performance. So if I'm drinking preceding up to my event for a couple of weeks, I might find that it will affect my performance on the day or at least my training leading up to it. So if I'm about to perform a marathon, it may not be the most appropriate time to drink alcohol throughout the weeks leading up to it. However, the night after that I've succeeded in running my marathon, it is absolutely appropriate to have your alcohol because it's about enjoying life still. We don't want to restrict you from your nutrition. This is not a restriction-based program. It's a context-based program. When is it a good time versus maybe when it's not a good time? I want you to still enjoy your life, but I want you to use your nutritional visor as regularly as you can to make the good, better, best decision when appropriate. All right, team, let's talk about caffeine. Now, most of us will ingest caffeine in some fashion, whether that's tea, coffee, or energy drinks. So it's important that we understand what it's doing within our body and the context of how we approach it. So for the average person, the top end of caffeine consumption is about 400 milligrams a day. For reference, that's about 4 coffees or 2 energy drinks, depending on the brand. That's your top end. In excess of, you may find that you can start experiencing anxieties, jitters, it can upset your stomach, and you may start experiencing withdrawals. So how does caffeine work? As we perform movement throughout the day, we create metabolic waste. In our body, we have a thing called adenosine triphosphate, ATP. Now that's not relevant, you don't need to necessarily know that, but as we perform movement, we create a waste product called adenosine. As adenosine triphosphate becomes an adenosine diphosphate. Again, not relevant for you, but we have a floating adenosine. That is a part of our metabolic waste. They build up in the body and contribute to us feeling tired and sleepy. We have receptors that run along our cells that kind of look like little claws. Adenosine and these receptors are of the same shape. So as adenosine builds up, it will fill the receptors, making you feel more fatigued. Caffeine is the same shape as adenosine. It also stimulates these receptors. So it can fill up these spaces as well as adenosine. This buildup of metabolic waste will make us feel more tired, where caffeine will fill those receptors and make us feel more alert. So that's what caffeine's doing. It's going into the cells and it's filling those receptors, making you feel more alert. However, we now have the problem that there is still adenosine floating around in your body. Now, your body's very, very smart. It knows that there's adenosine still floating around in you. So to help catch them, it makes more receptors to grab the adenosine that still remains. As you go to bed, your body will clear out all these adenosines if you're getting the appropriate amount of sleep, leaving you now with empty receptors. The problem now becomes that since we used caffeine to help us with our alertness, we have more receptors than we previously had, which means now when we have adenosine release, we may have more receptors than there are adenosine. So we need to have more caffeine now to help us feel more alert. And so the cycle continues where as we drink more caffeine, we fill up more spaces. If we're having more caffeine than perhaps we need, we can make a thing called upregulating, meaning making more receptors until we need a higher and higher and higher dose of caffeine. Now, the good news is we can downregulate receptors by reducing slowly our caffeine intake. And as our body detects that we have more receptors than we do adenosine cells or caffeine cells, it will remove them from the cell walls. However, you may experience light, if not large, withdrawal effects. Now, caffeine also has a 6-hour half-life. So as you have your hit, you ingest some coffee in the morning, after about 6 hours, your caffeine will have halved in its strength. Every 6 hours, it will half again. So you may find that after about 3 to 4 hours, or as our day progresses, you need more and more hits to keep you feeling alert. Now, caffeine will affect people differently. Some people have a very, very good caffeine tolerance, and some people have a very, very poor caffeine tolerance. So some people can have a coffee at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and sleep well, where others may have a coffee at 9 o'clock in the morning and not be able to sleep at all that night. That will depend completely on you. It will depend on how much caffeine you are ingesting. But the more important thing is to understand this process, and it will help explain perhaps why you might be feeling like you're leaning more and more towards higher quantities of caffeine as your days and months and weeks progress. All right, team, let's have a look at another sheet that I want to give you this week. I need you to close your eyes. So I need you to close your eyes. I want you to think about the healthiest person that you know. I need you to think of 5 things that that healthy person you know does. That person doesn't have to be real. You might never have met them in your life. They could be a celebrity, they could be a friend, they could be a family member. It doesn't matter. But I want you to think about what are the 5 things that person does. Now, you might have thought of stuff like they train every day. You might have thought that they stretch every day, or they go running every day, or their nutrition is very good. It doesn't matter. I want you to write down those 5 things. Using your ready, willing, and able tool from your toolbox, I want you to choose one of those 5 things and break it down into a reasonable amount that you could do every day. So if you chose, for example, that my healthy person in my mind runs 10 kilometers every day, well, that might not be a reasonable achievement for yourself. So we do our ready, willing, and able. So I might be ready, willing, and able to walk half a kilometer every day. And so for this week, and this week only, I want you to try and do that healthy habit. Choose one thing this week that you break down with your ready, willing, and able, and you yourself attempt it. You could choose to do 5 minutes of meditation a day if that's something that you believe your healthy person does. Choose a habit, try to do it every day this week, and write it down on both your sheets here and on your checklist. Choose one, complete it for the week. Team, I want to readdress hydration with you. Alcohol is a known dehydrator, so it's a good idea to just refresh your memory of some of the things we talked about when it came to water. Remembering that most of the chemical reactions in your body use water in some capacity. So if we want to break down fats, we do that in the medium of water. When we want to build up muscle or build up strength or build up proteins, that happens in the medium of water. Our sports performance is very reliant on the medium of water. If you are 1% holistically dehydrated, you are 10% less efficient in your sport performance. Think about the sponge and the bucket. When the bucket has full of water and my sponge is being manipulated in there, my muscle is dense and strong and gets hard to tear. Versus when the bucket is empty and my sponge dry, it tears apart quite easily. You want to aim to get about 3 liters of water a day. We get about 1 liter from our vegetables, and we're aiming to get about 3 liters, depending on the size of the person, a day. Now, do recall that we may not be able to do these things straight away. You might be working yourself up to being able to have 3 liters a day. That's okay. If we need to pause videos, if we need to take weeks off, whatever it is, so that we can slowly build up our 90% consistency on each of the tasks on our sheets, that's okay. You take your time and work yourself towards these goals. Remember, this is a lifestyle change, not a diet. It may take a bit longer, and you're going to find some things harder than others. Excellent, team. That's going to be the end of our week this week. Something to consider is that you should be starting to feel as if this program is getting harder. Next week, we're going to talk about why we might start feeling that our motivation is dropping, or why we might feel that there's resistance now to some of this training. It's actually something that we factor in throughout this program, knowing that most people will start to drop off in their motivation between week 7 and week 9. It's something that happens within you, and we're going to discuss why that is the case. So don't stress if you're feeling overwhelmed, and certainly don't stress if you're struggling with any of these activities. You should be at this point. If you're finding that you're feeling very motivated and you're having high success with this program so far, that's excellent. You're crushing it. Keep going. For those who might be finding that it's getting harder or that the motivation just isn't there, that's okay. Next week, we're going to talk about why that might be occurring. Good work, team. Keep up with your sheets. 90% consistency, still enjoy your caffeines, still enjoy your alcohols, but now approach them with more context and more knowledge.